You're listening to Achtung Millwall, broadcasting from the beautiful South Birmingham. Accept no substitute.
Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to the COVID Recovery Support Group, starring the man himself, Mr. Harry Warren. How are you doing, Harry? You're on the back end of it, mate, aren't you?
Yeah, I've got a negative test today. I have to test tomorrow, and if I test negative, I'm allowed back out into society. Yeah.
And a non-COVID testing participant in today's conversation, Mr. Neil Fissler. Welcome to the show, Neil.
Hello, Nick. How you going, mate? How you going, Harry?
Yeah, good, mate.
Yeah, I don't. If listeners can detect the faint blocked nose, and I will be using the mute button on a few occasions if I cough and sputter to try and spare you my positive test. I couldn't get down the den this afternoon for that nervy, but in the end victorious afternoon victory of 2-1 over Cardiff City. Just as I was starting to write out a text of praise for keeping a clean sheet, chaps, Mill did their usual edgy finale to make it nervous at the finish there. But I was actually struggling, Neil, to find a good way to sum up that game, because it was a dire first half. Which improved the introduction of Bennett and Saville, which was kind of halfway through the second half, roughly, I think. Yeah, 68 minutes. And then we livened it up from there, scored both goals from that point onwards. But other than that, it was quite hard to come up with much that was positive from a Mill perspective. How did you see the game there, mate?
Bipolar Millwall, wasn't it? First half was absolutely dour, probably suited our manager's persona and game plan and the way that he comes across. Yeah, it was. Yeah, let's not put too much of a finer point on it. It was fucking boring. Yeah, I was almost trying to switch over for the TV to find some rugby or something to watch. Yeah, because it was just awful, wasn't it, that first half? And just looked like it was going to be one of those boring Gary Rowett ball 0-0 draws. We probably had the best chance of the first half, I think, where Burke hit the keeper's feet. They looked like they were going to scramble a goal once, I think, when the ball went in the 6-yard box, pinged around a little bit, didn't it? And Bart saved quite low down. But you always got the feeling that they weren't going to get away from us. I know they've had some quite good results under Steve Morrison, haven't they, of late? But you didn't ever think that they were going to snatch and grab a couple of goals, which would have made it difficult. Then, as you said, second half was totally the opposite, wasn't it? He brings on a couple of substitutes and the game
turns a game. Yeah. I was watching Cardiff TV, listeners, so I was listening to a strangely disjointed commentator, and I don't know, because you don't have a picture of the person concerned. So I had a mental image of like a student doing it from his bedroom with a live feed to the den. So you were kind of one step removed from reality, which matched my mental state anyway, Harry. As a COVID positive patient today, I felt like I was slightly disjointed from real life anyway. And he described the game turning on that handball chance for Cardiff on 46 when Jake seemed to handle it in the area. I mean, it looked like a penalty to me. How did you see it, mate?
I think there was two moments where Cardiff probably should be 1, if not 2-0 up. That's one. It's probably a penalty. Whether or not it's a red card, I don't think referees know whether or not it's a goal scoring opportunity or double jeopardy or whatnot. But then also they missed a chance from inside the 6-yard box where it was easier, where the I think it was Hugo got in front of Bart and all he had to do was header it down, and he tried to place it in a corner for some unknown reason. And that could have been 1 or 2-0 easily. And then would the Den have turned? It's small margins, but on a positive note, trying to be positive, we've won the game. But again, I do feel we are just papering over the cracks of what this side is.
I agree. I mean, I wasn't there today, listeners, so I can't tell you about the mood of the Den. I'm only going by what I read on Twitter, and that you have to take some of that with a pinch of salt sometimes, because that's individuals' takes on it. But there were talks at half time. I think it was Ed Castle saying people were leaving the ground at half time because they were bored. And I don't disbelieve that, Neil. Do you? We all read the forums, we all read Twitter, we all have been there. We all watch the streams, so we know how tedious it is. And it seems a bit churlish in the aftermath of a 2-0 win, 2-1 win, to complain. But it's got to be more exciting than this to put the bums on seats. And I don't think that's something that the club is entirely connecting at the moment. Because at half time, I thought, yeah, I probably might. Well, I wouldn't have left at half time; it's not in my nature. But I can understand people doing so. If go and get a few beers, have a drink down the pub. It's more entertaining. I mean, this is a problem, I think.
The attendances are shocking, aren't they? If you actually look at the attendances and see the fact how long we went without football, the attendances this season should be consistent, and they've just tailed away because the football is boring. There's no other word for the football. It is shit. It's not good enough at like the idea of playing 5 at the back and so on and being a passing style is brilliant. But if you haven't got the staff to do it, that's what it becomes.
To be honest, I think that it's twofold. I think the football is shit, as Harry says. I think that there's a big disconnect between the club management. Yeah, well, I mean that twofold. I mean Rowett and also I mean Kavanagh. I think Kavanagh's attitude's putting a few off. They don't like one or two things that are happening behind the scenes. And also, I think the ticket prices are obscene, aren't they? Is it something like 34 quid, 32, 34 quid?
Is it how much it is? Yeah.
On match day. And
wow.
And what with everything, well, if you're being asked to pay 32 quid or something like that to watch a game on a match day, to rock up, it's a lot of money at the minute. Bills are going up. There's less money in your pocket. And you're thinking, do I really want to spend £32 to be bored to fucking death like you were in the first half? But then again, yeah, well, that's football, isn't it? You should never leave a football match at any time. You don't leave a film after an hour, do you? Or walk out of a gig.
I don't know, anyone who watched James Corden in Cats might have left after 5 minutes. Yeah, I would have asked the question of why you were there in the first place, but yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, but you wouldn't want to watch James Corden in anything, really, would you? You get
a snuff movie might do it.
We're going wildly off topic here, chaps. maybe that's an indication of the state of play at the moment. I mean, the goal, the opening goal for the Lions, I mean, we've skirted over a lot of the match here because there's not really that much to report, listeners. So we're going to go to I've got it as 72 minutes. I mean, it might have been 73 minutes. We'll go 1-0 up, which was that corner from the right side. Strange goal, in all honesty. I mean, if I was a Cardiff fan, I'd have to call that very poor defence. A corner that kind of skims its way through your penalty area and gets headed home from close with unchallenged on the other side of the 6-yard box must be poor defence. But Murray Wallace for me is he's one of those eternal Millwall players, and he's a bit like Jimmy Abdu. He never stops running. He always gives you everything, and he scuffs and gets big moments like that goal to put us a goal ahead in a game that we didn't really deserve to be leading.
What you got to say about Murray Wallace is he's a typical Millwall type of player.
Absolutely,
absolutely isn't spectacular. Isn't brilliant, but gives you 100% every single game. And I think he encapsulates everything that we look for in a player. Don't necessarily have to be the best player in the world, but as long as you as long as you give everything, it'll do. But it was a strange goal, to say, because in the first half, I thought Cardiff set up quite well at the back, didn't they? And they actually looked like that they were going to be quite difficult to break down.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, a ball that shouldn't even have got to where it got
bounces inside the 6-yard box. That's right.
Yeah, and it wasn't even the best header in the world. It looked as if he scuffed it, didn't he? Really, he didn't get a good connection on it, and it trickles into the back of the net. And who cares? You're too busy celebrating, aren't you? 1-0. Thank you very much indeed.
I think the cross for the corner, or the cross that led to the corner, was another one that the keeper should have come and taken. I think it got caught in the wind or whatever, but it looked like they were complaining for a foul when it was their own player who got in the way of the keeper. So I think we scored at a key time because it could have just sort of 5-10 more minutes in, it would have just broken into a sort of normal Rowett sort of home draw. bit like
Ball
the Preston
fest.
game. Yeah, it could have done. And well, as soon as we get one up, like I didn't think we were going to lose the game from there. I thought the first goal ever scored, it would probably win the game. So
I mean, another moment. I actually want to rewind slightly. Another praise for Murray because he took a yellow card for the team on 52. I don't know if you saw that, boys, but the Cardiff broke. It was a Jake Cooper error. I think he misplaced the pass, and I thought the quality of our passing all afternoon was very poor. And I don't particularly want to hound Jake, but he made a howler of a pass there, which almost put the Cardiff forward through on the right, and Murray pulled him back and had to take a yellow card. But it was a very intelligent yellow card because it wasn't a goal scoring opportunity, and it would only be a yellow, not a red, because it was a few more yards, and you might have got into that zone. But that prevented probably a goal scoring chance. Which again, as Harry said, I think the first scorer of the first goal would probably have gone on to win the game. So two big moments there, really, both Murray Wallace related. I must admit, I relaxed a lot once we went a goal ahead because I didn't really think Cardiff showed that much to be excited over. I mean, they were physical, weren't they? The Cardiff commentary kept talking about the rebuilding process that Steve Morrison's putting them through at the moment. And maybe that is a rebuild. I don't know. I don't follow them. But I thought they looked a bit like Millwall, actually, in some ways, only with bigger blokes, more powerful and bigger. Maybe done slightly better, I don't know. But I mean, they had a good result midweek, so possibly that's a rebuild. I don't know. Second goal finished it, which was a great. It was a great cross in from the right. I think it was Saville, wasn't it? Saville crossed it in, chipped it in from the right side, and Bennett put it away nicely. And that should have been game, set, and match at that point. But somehow we always contrive to make it edgy towards the end, Neil, don't we? That's typically Millwall as well.
Well, the noticeable thing for the second goal was actually how Bennett actually took out two of their players. He drew two players to him, kind of won a ball. That set Saville free inside the box, and he just dinked a little cross to the back post, didn't he? That had taken a bit of a deflection.
Yeah.
And in came Bennett, wasn't it? Thought he went up too early, and the geezer shoved him in the back. And he got his head to it, and it rolled in the back of the net. But as you say, well, we don't like making things easy for ourselves. It's typical Millwall, isn't it? That a game that we should have been quite comfortable thereon.
Yeah.
Wasn't really, was it?
No, 90 plus 2. We give away a poor goal, Harry. I mean, I think one of the consistent themes of the season has been a defence that we previously would have praised. I mean, I can't remember the numbers now, but I mean, it was one of the better defences in the division. But it seems to have become rather lax without any compensating attacking play to compensate for that lackadaisical approach at times in defence.
Yeah, I mean, was it 4 or 5 clean sheets all year? It's not good enough from a defensive manager that plays 5 at the back. But I mean, admittedly, they have been missing Ballard, and Pearce is a toddler with an hand grenade at the back. So it's not. You can't. I look at the only thing I can compare it to is a bit like Leicester. Leicester were quite good defensively, and then all of a sudden they get a few injuries, and they're not very good defensively anymore. And people are saying give people time and so on. The differences with Millwall is we've got no. The difference is second half. I think when we go forward and we actually attack teams are worried about what we do. When we are positive and when we get on the front foot, and I'm not just talking about this like our manager does. When you actually go and do it, not what he said before the Fulham game. When you go and do that, you stop the opposition because they have to worry about you first. Where we're very reactive normally, and we normally give away chances because we are so scared about what the opposition do to us. I think we draw them onto us more, and that's what we've done all season for me. Rather than going and having a go, we've sort of played this negative football that makes other teams smell blood in the water, and then they come at us and we're not good enough to defend that. So it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, but at the end of the day, it's not been good enough from the defence all year.
Can I just add one thing about that whilst Nick has a good cough?
Yeah.
I think they got caught ball watching, actually. But if you have a look, the guy sneaked in between two players, didn't he? And they both kind of left it to each other to sort out, and the geezer stuck out a foot, and it was 2-1. But, I do take your point. I think he sets up where he's more where he doesn't want to lose a game rather than going out to win a game, and that's something that I've said about him for about 18 months now. And
well, that brings me. I was mid cough, listeners. I was just about to make that very point. I was saying it brings us on to the question of the manager, because to me, what we've seen when we go forwards, I mean, Harry, just to put your point in a nutshell, and I think much the same from yourself. When we go forwards, we're not a bad side. I mean, we can play some decent stuff going forwards if we're kind of set free, unleashed, whatever you want to call it. When we try and contain games, we don't do very well. And that takes me to the question of the manager, because we're now, I was just looking at the table before we started recording, chaps, and we're 15th position. After a win, we're still in 15th position. We are solidly lower table now. We're not in danger of relegation. That's way out of contention. 20 point gap between us and Peterborough in the top of the bottom three. But we're now decisively a mid to lower table side, which wasn't the game plan. That wasn't on whatever Gary Rowett's interview notes would have been. I know he's had COVID to contend with, but so is the rest of the Football League and football more widely. I think the question of the management has to be considered. If it's not being considered by the club, then I query their competence, because I reckon we're probably going to finish roughly in this position, maybe a few places higher, maybe a couple of points less than that. I don't know. 15th seems to me about par for where we're going to finish for the season now. I think we can do better, and I think we can do better with a different approach. I don't think all-out attack is the way to go, Harry, but more of an attacking mentality, especially at the Dens, strikes me as this group of players have that potential to do better than what they're being allowed to.
Yeah, I'd like a plan A and a plan B. We seem to have a plan A, and if the plan A doesn't work, then we lose or we draw. It doesn't really, for me, 5 at the back's fine if we're going away from home and we're trying to play railway ball to nick a draw on the road or a win on the road 1-0. I'll accept that. But for me, the things that have killed me and why I've got no confidence in him is he doesn't know how to play to us at the Den. And the Den is our biggest weapon. It will always be our biggest weapon in the right hands. And we can't outspend teams. So you need to make the Den a fortress. And when managers haven't done that, I'm thinking of Holloway, Lomas, recently, it falls away. When Jacket started to ball or you're to tears by the end of it, it's when it starts to break down. It's when the club starts to regress and go into itself and have a period of stagnation and a period of demise. And if we don't address it, it's only going to get worse. We're only going to slip further away.
Neil, I don't see us being terribly different from this position now. I'll stand to be corrected, listeners. We might go on a 10-game unbeaten run. We might start scoring goals for fun, but it's hard to see it at the moment. If we finish in this mid-table position, I think that's got to be considered a failure from Gary Rowett's point of view, given the approach that he said he would want to come into the club with. He wanted to aim upwards. He said that quite recently in one of his post-match interviews about being ambitious. It doesn't look. I know we're speaking after a win, so some people will say out there it's being churlish, but I just think that if that's where it finishes, that's going to be considered a failure.
I don't know. I think we need a bit of a reality check, actually. We've had a lot of injuries this season. Hell of a lot of injuries this season. And to key players, not to squad players and that. You look at the players that are injured. Ballard. We've lost Bradshaw when he was going well. Ryan Leonard. Jed Wallace was out for quite a long time, wasn't he? You name it. And we've been without it, haven't we? I think we're probably a decent striker off having a good team, somebody who can score a goal. But I don't know where all of this talk of the playoffs comes from. We had quite a good season last year, and the season before we just missed out a couple of times, but then we tailed away, didn't we? Towards the end of it, but I think, as Harry said, we can't compete with the big spenders, and let's face it, even the teams in mid-table are spending 5, 6, 7, 8 million pound on players, and they're finishing in mid-table. So we're punching above our weight in a lot of respects, but to be fair, we ought to be happy just by finishing mid-table in the Championship because our budget is pitiful, the crowds are pitiful, so why should we expect an owner to put his hand in his pocket and spend a lot of money on players when it's not going to have any effect, really, is it? Yeah, but it's not going to put extra bums on seats and things like that. So you've just got to have a bit of a reality check. And you've also got to ask yourself two things. Is John Berylson a sacking chairman? No. He's got rid of players. But he's got rid of managers when he's had to get rid of managers and not before. He hasn't sacked managers willy-nilly. He's very, very loyal. And are we going to get a better manager than Gary Rowett or a better manager of the stature of Gary Rowett? And maybe not. The problem with managers is it's the same old, isn't it? Yeah, you look at Sunderland, a team that have got ideas of grandeur above their station. Roy Keane, what would that have all been about? Honestly, it failed. Yeah, the failed manager. They ended up appointing Alex Neil, another failed manager. So you've got to ask yourself, are we going to do better than Gary Rowett? And I don't think we would.
Achtung, Millwall.
Hello, Nick. It's Barry Moon here. I'm just, you're winding me up. You're winding me up today. Listening to that Harry. Oh, I'm sorry. Why is a Millwall supporter? I do not know. He talks absolute rubbish. No matter what. He wants Rowett out. He's always wanted Rowett out. He hates the man. I don't know what he's done to him, but I don't know what sort of manager he would want down our place or what players he wants. Because I'll be honest with you, why is a Millwall supporter is beyond me. Beyond me also. I'm sorry, you have a good, all the other guys talk sensible. He don't talk no bleeding sense at all, other than hate Rowett and hate the football, hate this, hate that. My good God, he makes James O'Brien on LBC look like a saint. Cheers, mate.
Hi, Nick. It's Matt Richards here. I don't know what to think about that game. It's a weird one. I'm kind of thinking, Cardiff were playing well, weren't they? It's like a full team, and we kind of comfortably beat them, but it's the proverbial game of two halves. I mean, the first half was just awful. We're just so slow in our build-up. I mean, five at the back I can take if we can move it faster to the forwards, and then it was just, nothing was going up there. Phoebe just wasn't, there's no relationship between Phoebe, Wallace and Burke, and awful. We had one shot on goal, but it's just a terrible half. Cardiff were a poor team as well. First half was really bad, but second half, before we put subs on and we changed formation, I just thought we just had played with a bit more pace, moving the ball around quicker, a bit more urgency, and that's just what we want to see. We didn't create loads of chances in the second half, but we were putting them under pressure. And Bart made a great save, and 2 goals. But it wasn't a great game. Murray Wallace with good header, good strong header, 3 in the box, and really pleased to see Mason get his goal as well, and Saville with the assist. So it's a decent win, 2-1 playing Tuesday. I don't know. Phoebe going down is a bit of a worry, and Burke injured as well, isn't it? So I don't know what the team will be like on Tuesday, but maybe Bury come in, maybe Freeman might be fit, but we'll take it. 2-1 win. We haven't had a load of wins, so we'll take it. So happy with that. Kind of average performance really. All right, cheers, Nick. Come on your lines.
Achtung, Millwall.
I don't expect us to do better than mid-table for the reasons that you've set out, and I think anyone listening to this show, if they're logical, must think the same way. I think where I would criticise the club or the Gary Rowett, let's get it right, is the lack of discernible plan and the bringing through of younger players, because that's going to be the only way that we do have any chance to compete. We can't compete into. That's
is
that
it?
area.
That's something
but
he
is it a
doesn't like.
discernible plan? Yeah, well, you look at our team. Yeah, Danny McNamara, homegrown. Billy Mitchell, homegrown. Tyler Bury on the bench, homegrown. Yeah.
But these
Then
are
you
out of necessity. These are out of necessity. He didn't like Danny McNamara at the start of the season. He played Ryan Leonard at right back. He doesn't really like
True.
Billy Mitchell. He tried George Evans before he played him. He's playing Tyler Bury because we've got no budget to go and sign a winger that he wants. He doesn't want Millwall youngsters. There is my opinion is that he doesn't like this link. He doesn't like the link. He doesn't like a Millwall type player because Millwall type players, let's be honest, are irrational and are not sort of plan based. They play on the crowd, and he doesn't want that. It's very clear that he doesn't want that. But for me, the problem is that for a squad like us, the thing you need to do for a club with not major resources is you need to be able to blend your youngsters with experienced championship heads and get a good balance. We've not done that. We're not going to do that. Yes, he's done well in the transfer window to get rid of some wages. He's moved out some dead wood. But, I don't like this thing online where they turn around and say it's not his squad. It very much is his squad because he has spent money. And people, say, oh, it's not as much as this person or that person. We're in the realm of what we are. And he has spent money and he signed 8 centre midfielders, which I still can't work out at the start of the season. When Leonard's fit, where does Leonard play in this marvellous three with Saville, Billy Mitchell, Clifton Bell, Evans? Where there's too many.
Probably playing at centre back.
Probably will. It might play him up front. Who knows? He's played everywhere else, and the other in goal. But the thing is that you can't afford to do that at Millwall because your budget isn't good. So then I don't want to hear you moaning about, oh, we can't bring this player in or we can't bring that player in because you spent the money already. There isn't an infinite amount of money. There isn't an infinite amount of budget. The problem is as well is he's not exciting enough to make you want to go. I know people who bought a season ticket this season that I've spoken to who will not be renewing because he bores them to tears. And that's a problem because you need more season tickets to get the budget to go and spend the money to improve the squad.
A bit braver. I think he has to be a bit braver in the transfer market. And you can actually, Yemla and I have argued it on the other podcast a number of times.
The other place.
Yeah, the other place.
The one we shall not name.
Yeah, the other place where I think you can follow the Brentford model, can't you? And things like that, where you bring players in from the lower divisions, you develop them and you sell them. Yeah. That is something that we ought to be looking at doing, to be quite honest. But we haven't seemed to grasp that reality, have we? That there are bargains in the lower divisions. And if you do what Peterborough do, and Brentford and teams like that, where you go out and you buy the next player, you've always got your eye on your next centre forward, haven't you? Because you know that the one you've got is going to go for quite decent money. So you're looking at replacing him, and you've got potentially his replacement or the replacement of the replacement in mind. I think that we're not smart enough in that sense. I think that our recruitment has been awful for donkey's years, hasn't it?
I agree with that, Neil. Yeah.
I think that poor old Kenny had that list that was in Michael Calvin's book, and eventually he went through it. Eventually, didn't he? And bought in the likes of Taylor Fletcher and Holtz, wasn't it? Holtz he tried to sign about
Rob Holtz, legendary figures, yeah.
But it was a standing joke, wasn't it? Every time you knew the transfer window was come up, you had to look at Mike Calvin's book to see who was next coming in because it was in because it was in that list of players. And then we gave Oldo the job, and to be quite frank, he was just tossed Michael Calvin's scouting book by Andy Ambler and said, "Oh, son, that's how you do the job." Yeah,
and quite so,
yeah. So we haven't ever had a plan in place.
No.
And Rowett, when he wanted a recruitment chief, he just went to one of his mates, didn't he? Who's lumbered us with Clifton Bell, who's hit and miss, and George Evans, who's hit and miss, and they just sign their mates, don't they? It's the modern phenomenon of football, isn't it? That managers, they stick with what they're comfortable with in terms of coaching teams and also players.
I just think you compare us to Luton. I know Aaron compares us to Luton quite a lot, but if you compare us to Luton in terms of their recruitment and what they've gone and done on a similar budget, and they're building a new stadium at the same time, so I'm assuming their budget's only going to decrease. They're in front of us in the league table. I know they got pumped 3-0 today by Birmingham, but that the difference in terms of what they were doing in the summer and what they do with their resources is remarkable, really, and that's proof that it can be done. So it's not this unachievable, it's only done by certain clubs. It is out there for us to do, and it needs to be done now. This is the thing. You can't, if you stand still in football, you will get beat, and that's what I fear we're going to do this summer.
The great untapped market is abroad. Yeah, but it's true, though,
well,
isn't it?
We don't seem to go there. Well, when we do go there, it's disastrous, but we don't go there with any great success, do we?
We go to Belgium and we sign Bob Peters. That's what we do.
Or we go to the Czech Republic and pick up Jiri Skalak. Well, he went to Brighton, didn't he? So.
Yeah, but it is the great untapped thing as far as Millwall's concerned, and we're in London. We're on the bloody... Well, we've got Eurostar passes under the bloody ground virtually, doesn't it? And we put in a couple of joke bids for a couple of Dutchmen, don't we? I don't know how we heard about them.
I think our scouting's done by Football Manager. I really do.
Yeah, but that's what I was going to say. Yeah, but did they play Football Manager one night at Billy Taylor or Max been on a Football Manager one night? Oh yeah, no, he looks quite good. Yeah, pass it on the Rowett sticks in a £500,000 bid, £1.5 million when the geezer's worth about 8.
It's interesting why we aren't any good at it, though. I mean, I've been fascinated by this. There's a debate online in the week about I think it might have been Aaron or it might have been Ryan who mentioned Swansea and their manager and how they play a certain style of football that someone said, I don't know, I can't remember the details of how it came in, but that Millwall fans wouldn't accept that style of football. And I don't buy that, Neil, because you and me are both old enough to remember the early 1990s when we did find the likes of ET and we did find players from, far-flung points. We had Casey Keller in goal from the US of A and Dutch Etienne Verveer and so on. And we played under the kind of Rioch going towards McCarthy era was playing some of the best football that I've ever seen at the Den in terms of passing and
movement. We just want to be entertained, really, don't we? You just want to go down there. Yeah. And if you're entertained, to be honest, I'm not bothered if we get beat 3-2 or we lose an entertaining 2-1 game, because you're going to win more than you lose, and you come out of the ground with a smile on your face. Okay, you might be pissed off for 10 minutes that you've just lost a game of football. I think that Millwall fans just want to be entertained, and we're not being entertained. We don't create enough chances. We don't put the ball in the box often enough. And that's what I think the frustration is. We don't think we're going to strictly come passing or whatever Swansea play. Well, that isn't going to happen, but would I like to watch it? Yes, pretty much so, because we'd probably win a lot more games and would be in and around the playoffs, that kind of thing. But I think it's a notion that Millwall fans want to watch aggressive type of football. It's not.
Aggressive 4-4-2. This is the stereotype. I don't buy it, Harry. I mean, you're younger than us too, so I don't believe.
Fucking hell.
I don't buy this notion that we don't have any finer tastes than just lump it 4-4-2. I don't buy it. I think Neil's point that we want to be entertained is a fair one, don't you, H? I mean, I think that is why you go there. I mean,
but it's an entertainment industry, isn't it, football?
Well, absolutely. You have a choice of whether or not you go and watch it, and football's never been more accessible in terms of, if you are talking about people younger than myself, this notion that they're going to turn up and pay 32 quid to watch it when they can spend the time in the pub and they can watch it on their phone if they're clever and they'll do certain things to watch it. Why would they not? You might as well have 4 beers and do that. The atmosphere at the Den this season has been flat. And that comes from the team. and the manager. That comes. They are a symbiotic relationship, and it just doesn't happen, does it? I like 4-4-2. I can't turn around and say I don't. I like 4-4-2. I like a Millwall style of team. I can swallow us not playing 4-4-2 if the football's good and the results are good, but the results ain't been good enough to make me think that Millwall are anything other than meat and two veg, 4-4-2, two wingers, two centre forwards, and let's go. That's how it is for me. But I call me a football dinosaur, but I can't see anything wrong with it.
When my boy says, that 4-4-2 is your bread and your butter. And to be quite honest, he's right. I'm a traditionalist. I'd like to see Millwall play 4-4-2, two wingers bombing forward, putting the ball in the box to two strikers. Yeah. But I feel that since a certain Catalan took over at a Premier League club, it's just gone totally the other way, English football, isn't it? We're all trying to be what we're not, and English football was great for a reason, not because we try and play this tiki-taka, pressing, high-octane, bloody passing game. It was because it was played at 1,000 miles an hour with two wingers knocking the ball into the box, wasn't it, really?
I think you can play a hybrid of the two. I don't think 4-4-2 has to be just lump it long. I think this is like thrown about as if this is the way it must be. I think sometimes you can play lovely football with 4-4-2 if you get it right. But it's not as simple as playing 4-2. You can play 4-3-2-1. You can play any formation you want as long as you pass the ball, create chances, put the ball in the box, and you put it away, and you win. There's a million different ways to win football matches, but there's also a million different ways seemingly to bore us to tears this season. And Gary Rowett's doing a fucking good job at trying to find all of them.
I think he's worked through all of them, hasn't he, over the time. But actually, football is a very simple game. You put the ball into the box and you create chances, and hopefully you take more than the opposition take. It's quite a simple game, really. But you've just got people that. Managers like Gary Rowett that speak a million languages of bollocks that just try and make it a lot more difficult than
he is
really
becoming
needs
very
to
Holloway-like, isn't he? He is in his interview. He's
becoming
very
not
Holloway.
As bad as that wanker.
No, he's not as bad as him. It's the same buzzwords. Like, I'm imagining that they're going to now have some kind of like sheets up on the board of like inspirational quotes and bollocks like that. Just very middle management, like Ricky Gervais in The Office type. David, I can go anywhere. Yeah.
You are listening to the Gary Rowett Fan Club Listeners podcast.
I think you're right. I think that you look at any sport and they have these certain buzzwords. Reset is one in cricket. You've got to have a red ball reset. No, you don't. You need to fucking rip it up and start again. It's not a fucking reset, is it? And there's certain buzzwords in sport like journey to describe your career.
We're all on our journeys.
On this journey. You're getting the fucking bus somewhere, are you? Because that's what a journey is. It's not a fucking career, is it? Oh, no. See, I'm going to start off on a rant here.
Achtung, Millwall.
So just a selection, dear listeners, of comments on the internet after today's, in the end, welcome 2-1 win over a rather poor Cardiff. I think that despite their early opportunities, and there was a very clear penalty shout just after the start of the second half, I didn't think an awful lot of them, personally speaking. Richard Corley of the South London Press posts on Twitter. He's took this selection early on. He says, but Murray Wallace was his man of the match day. Really been excellent, says Richard. I think I would agree with that. Michael Mason says Millwall fans either moan about the performance or the results. Fair point, Michael. For me, the game is about 90 minutes, just not a poor first half. 7 points from the last 9 at the Den is great going. Stop moaning and get behind the boys, implores Michael Mason. JP mentions that that result should put to bed all of the Morrison in comments. In other words, Rowett out and Morrison in. They were rubbish. In other news, Saville, Bennett and Keith in, he says. So he likes Saville, Bennett and Keith. I thought we improved tremendously once Jill Saville came into the side in the second half. Jack Clark, get in you Lions, he says. Guess you could say we ruined his day, Steve Morrison's day. Great second half performance, Bennett and Saville. Super subs, onwards to QPR. Morrison speaking to Richard Corley says we were very nice to him today. I wasn't there. I missed out, as you all know. So I can't say what the reception was like. It didn't sound too bad, but then the sound quality on the feed that I had wasn't brilliant. Phil Clark wasn't a great watch, says Phil, in the first 45, but we wanted it more in the second half, and the subs made all the difference. A great win in the end. And lastly, Steve Evans mentions in negative news, Bennett Kofobi looks set for a spell out, injured. He went off obviously late in the game today. I read also that Luke Freeman pulled up with a hamstring prior to the game. He wasn't on the bench at all today. Maybe Steve says maybe we need Zach Lovelace's mum to write a note for him for Tuesday night. It could get to that, Steve. It could get to that. And one last one. Graham Lionwall says Murray Wallace must be nailed on for player of the season. I think I would agree with that 100%, Graham. As you can probably tell from today's post-match conversation, it was rather a difficult game to probably assess. In the end, the result's a result, and I think that's probably about the most that I can take away from today's performance. I'm not going to be able to make Wednesday night's game, unfortunately, so I'm hoping for another scuffly win, just to put, I don't know, just to take us up the table a little bit. I don't think we deserve to be in the lower half of the table, but that's very much where we're set at the moment. So London Derby versus QPR, normally a big game. Let's hope that we get another result in midweek.
Achtung, Millwall.
We are speaking in the aftermath of a 2-1 win, listeners, so we don't want to depress you too much.
I think we're depressing ourselves, aren't we? We're forgetting
in the end, we clung
won
on.
this game 2-1.
We actually won. We got
We actually
QPR,
won it.
beat today.
Who was your man of the match today, Harry? Who did you choose? Who was your standout for you today?
Murray Wallace, absolutely.
Murray Wallace. I think so.
In
Neil?
the best traditions of Millwall, Murray Wallace.
Yeah,
go for,
Murray, I think. Yeah, Murray, Danny McNamara looked quite.
Yeah, and I know. I agree with Murray. I also want to mention Keefton Belt gets some stick because, as you said, I think earlier on there, we can blow hot and cold, but when he blows hot, he's not a bad player actually. And
I think the last 3 or 4 games he's actually played quite well. I think he had a really shocking game. Was it up at Blackpool?
Right. Yeah.
Where I think I went onto Hoff and went into one and just get this fucking cunt out of my club because he's fucking shit. And then all of a sudden, he's clicked into place and he's reminded us that he is quite. He
probably reads Hoff. He probably goes on Hoff and reads it.
He probably does. He's probably.
I think that's part of the Millwall contract negotiations is that you're not allowed to go on Hoff.
I want to touch on the point that you made earlier on, Neil, and this is the kind of. I mean, Harry, we're all aware of it. I don't think it's the elephant in the room that there aren't that many people going to the ground. I mean, I went to it was the last midweek game. Was that Preston?
Preston, yeah.
Preston.
Yeah. And there was, where I sit, there's acres of plastic seats all around me, empty. And I know the club, in common with other clubs, and I'm not slating the club for bumping up the figures because they include season ticket holders on their final count, and they all do that, so no problem. But I do think that there's a noticeable drift about the club. One or two of the tweets I read today, I wasn't there, I'll repeat, because I'm not allowed out. But one or two of the tweets were saying about how the atmosphere was flat. And we've all picked up on that. I don't think that's a secret around the club. I want to try and touch on some of the reasons for it because I think that there is a sense that the club is drifting away from the fans, Neil. I mean that would certainly be my understanding of what the vibe is on forums like House of Fun. I mean, is that how you read it? Is that how you see it on there?
Yeah, there's definitely a disconnect between the hierarchy of the club. Well, I won't say John Berylson, but
he's far removed from it, isn't he? Yeah.
But his foot soldiers, Kavanagh and such like. I think there's definitely a feeling, there's a mood that they're trying to sanitise what Millwall's about. And I must admit, something was thrown on the pitch again today, so you've got to say...
I saw that,
yeah, totally... I think there's a fine line between being Millwall and being unacceptable.
Mm.
I'm going to carefully watch what I say because I don't want to be cancelled. But
I don't cancel anyone. People seem to think I'm some kind
everyone
of.
will cancel. My Twitter will light up like mad tomorrow morning.
Oh right, okay.
But no, there's a disgruntlement, I think, at all things to do with the club. I think, as Harry said, at the football and the way the club's being run and the way the club are treating fans at the minute. And it's a lot of money to spend out to go and watch a game of football, as I said before. So there's no easy answer to it, to be quite honest.
It feels like the club's like operating in different spheres. You've got like the commercial department that's doing one thing, like whether that be with Recast and the YouTube and all this kind of stuff. Then you've got what's going on the pitch over here that, you know, everyone gets to voice their opinion at 3:00 on a Saturday and people are doing that by not turning up. So I don't know if that's telling you enough, Millwall Football Club, but there you go. And then you've sort of got the underlying sort of badly, and it's been like it, and I don't want to slag off the supporters club, but it's been going on. They didn't help themselves sort of about 12 months ago with a couple of statements that weren't particularly great. And I feel like the club since then has been bad. Anytime that there's a moment of crisis and they need to do a statement, I don't know Wrightson, but they sort of are insinuatory to certain people and certain things, like what Neil said about obviously the Kavanagh statement. I didn't find that funny. I found that like sort of high
Don't be a tosser.
humor.
Don't be a tosser.
Yeah, I just found that, you know, I don't want my chief executive to come across like he, you know, it wants to be a jokey pally. If you're going to say something serious, be serious about it, or don't say it. You know, it's one or the other. I also get the fact that people would maybe respect it more if it was serious, rather than kind of trying to poo-poo it in. Oh, we're Millwall, we're going to say don't be a tosser. It's a bit the worst type of comedy to me. Almost, it's almost more offensive for the fact how it was done.
I think he was probably under pressure from the sponsors. It was on live TV.
Yeah.
And let's face it, whatever Millwall fans do is amplified 10 times, isn't it? With all of that stuff that happened at the Palace game. Palace throwing stuff on the pitch, that was ignored. Was it Preston or somebody were throwing seats?
There's been a few lately, Neil. Yeah.
Pyros.
Yeah.
Leicester fan runs on the pitch and attacks three Nottingham Forest players. That's gone remarkably quiet, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And there was the Everton game, I think, where somebody threw something at an Arsenal player, was it?
Yeah.
But it seems to be that every time Millwall do something, it's in the headlines for about 3 days, isn't it?
It will be. But the problem is that you deal with that in one or two ways. You either batten down the hatches and defend the club and try and show what we're doing, or you come out and do. But he didn't do that. But he also didn't fully condone. It was sort of like it's kind of like the top. You mentioned cricket earlier on. It's a bit like the start of an England batting lineup. You know it's going to go wrong. So
immediately, don't
you? Exactly. You know what's going to happen before it happens. So I just feel that there's kind of a disconnect in what we want to be. They don't. All the ideas seem to be, but I'm sure they're based in some form of what they think is right for the club. But I think there's been a lot of, you know, like this survey last season. I mean, I didn't see the survey go out to answer. One, I wouldn't have answered it because that's just not what I'm like. But two, I don't know whatever come of that survey. I don't know what the answers were, but it seems to have got worse since. Exactly. It
was like your questionnaire on your match day going experience, which, you know, you can always take the piss out of that kind of thing because it's
shit food. Done. Yeah, the food was shit.
I mean, that's a subject in its own right, Neil, because I was just saying on our WhatsApp group earlier on that Aaron posted a picture of decent looking pie and mash over at Wimbledon, and I think Ebbsfleet have got a German currywurst sausage, looks proper stuff with German beer, German sausage, bread roll, you know, and it looked highly eatable. And, you know, so was the stuff that we've seen at Stadium Food, but it looked pretty good at Wimbledon. So there's one area where I bought myself a pie a few weeks ago. I think I might have mentioned it on one of the shows, and it was chronic, chaps. I mean, it was incinerated. It was dry as old Harry.
What makes me
It
laugh?
was £7, Harry. Between that and a drink.
You've got all that fucking space outside, right, where you could sell that to retailers, right? I know this is beyond Millwall Football Club, but you can sell
Millwall
that
food court. Can you
right?
imagine the foodies
outside, right?
down
You could sell that outside within that space. You could sell that to whoever would like to use it, whatever fast food restaurant, and cancel the food inside and save the wages on the poor people and make them all poor pints, because that's all people want inside, really, or hot drinks when it's crap, right? That is it. The beer's what makes it livable, and the beer's shit as well, which is
I want to make the point that Reg Burr promised us pizza up at McDonald's
and I
on the concourses when he sold us the dream of the ground. And I want to know. He
sold us the dream. I remember those promises as well. It was going to be McDonald's and marble halls. I think that.
I think it's a good point. Actually, I think it's a good point that you've got all of that space. Embrace what they do at rugby grounds a little bit, where you have different vendors out there. And I think people would go to it because, well, let's face it, the bar at the back of the Cold Blow Lane is quite well attended, isn't it? Because there is fuck all else around the ground.
There's nothing going on.
If you want to get down there early and all the transportation problems, that it's a pain in the arse to get to and from, considering the ground is, what 5 miles from central London or something like that, that if you actually made it a more of attractive match day experience, that people would get down there early, they'd be quite happy to spend money.
I think you're right. I think the club are in a difficult position in some ways because, we all want the Millwall atmosphere. We all know what we're talking about, that, listeners. We all know, we've all been there. We all know what a big night feels. You've got to supply the football that lays that on. I think that's been the repeat theme of our conversation in the post-match today. I also think that people do get over they go too far, and if someone wants to chuck something on the pitch, well, you can't complain if measures are taken to try to prevent that. The club's kind of got to, because the Football League will require that they do that. Sponsors will abandon you at some point. There will be consequences. That what you can't have is you can't go mental and then think that that's okay every week because it's Millwall. There's no special. No. There's a fine line.
There's a very, very fine line there. And I think we overstep it. I know we all revel in the reputation of the club, and there's a certain edginess with being a Millwall fan, isn't there? People ask you who you support, you say Millwall, and they go, and you kind of like that, don't you?
I find it quite funny, to be honest.
Normally
people are the kind of people that turn around and are, or I find that the ones who go like that tend to not have a lot of things in common with me, if I'm being honest. If they react like that, normally, if I'm at a dinner party and that's normally one of the first things done, are you going to beat me up?
This is not the Millwall we know. Not the Millwall we know, Neil, is it?
You go to a drink and someone goes, you do that, and normally it's someone called Tarquin or something turns around and says to you, "Oh, you're not going to beat me up, are you?" And these are the things you have to deal with being a Millwall fan.
Well, Real Wall would headbutt him, to be quite honest.
Just for being called Tarquin, really, wouldn't they?
Bosh.
Exactly.
I think. I think the club are often on a hiding to nothing with situations that go on at football, because there are people that will go too far. There are people that get smashed out their nut on drink or whatever they've brought into the stadium, and then they'll complain of rough handling when that it's been put to rights one way or the other. You can't have it all ways. I think sometimes there's a desire for some mythical old days where everything was okay, and now it's not. And I think sometimes reality check is a good expression that we've used football wise, Neil, in this conversation, but I also think it goes off the pitch a little bit as well. I'm not arguing for I don't know what sanitisation, far from it, but you do live within a legal framework that applies in 2022, and if you don't take any action in the aftermath of events, the club will get punished for it, and they can't do that. So
I think, to be honest, all I'm asking for is edible food and beer with bubbles in it. I think that's not. I don't think
I could put up with the food.
I don't. and I don't think there's any forward thinking at this club as my Alexa goes.
No, there's none.
For no reason at the thought of.
I can put up with the food. I can put up with the bird shit in my corner where I sit. I can put up with the bovril that tastes like hot water. I can put up with everything if I watch a decent game of football, because that's why I've gone to Millwall. If I'm watching a load of pony like we have too often, then yes, it will. People will get disgruntled. So
yeah, but football now is about the whole day experience, isn't it? I know I can't believe I'm talking about this.
It is.
That you have to make an event around the game of football, and I know that Millwall try in their own way. I know they've got various little things out the back of the cold blow lane, haven't they?
They try and get bands to play singers and things sometimes.
To be honest, the one or two I've heard have been really good. They've been absolutely top notch.
Okay.
And I think if you actually put some decent food out there, and
I think people would buy it and go for it. Yeah, I agree.
I think it would make the whole, especially when the sun's shining, because you don't really want to do it when it's freezing cold, do you?
No.
I think it would have the desired effect. I think that people would, it's all about the whole experience now. I think the whole experience is lacking down there, and that's at every level from before the game and the match itself.
I'll talk for myself. We tried to, when we had sort of our little meet up before Christmas, trying to get a beer before the game it should be simple. That shouldn't be hard. But it is hard at Millwall because there's no pubs or anything near the ground. And when you're in the actual ground, you've got to go to HMP Harry's bar. And it isn't it is the world's worst bar, and I'm saying that in the nicest thing. It needs to be shut and redone. The bar needs to be twice as big as it is. Right, let's be honest. It doesn't need the seating area like it's got, especially with the bar at the back. These are all simple things. If you want to increase the revenue on a match day with less people there, do offers on the beer. Do intelligent things like normal retailers do. It's beyond me how the club shop, in the entire time of my supporting the club shop is beyond itself of printing its own T-shirts, like little workwear T-shirts. We are a working class club. A small little lion, like a Ralph Lauren sized little logo, would sell. It's not beyond me to tell you this. With Primark quality fucking T-shirts.
Yeah, no, the whole thing. Yeah, well, I know we mentioned that but the club shop is shocking.
Yeah, it is.
Always has been.
It's absolutely embarrassing, isn't it?
These are all additional revenue streams that already exist. You don't need to do retail. You don't need to do all this other shit. Just get the things you've already got right first, and we'll move on to the new ideas afterwards. Let's get what we've got right.
Yeah, but it all goes back to what I said about forward thinking and forward planning, and we've got a certain attitude, isn't it, that people do want to spend
to run a shop. I would like to put this very easy. It is extremely easy.
Yeah, it is. You just get somebody half competent to do it, don't you, really?
And that's another thing. When you look at the ticket office staff, I saw one of them jobs go out the other day. That the money they're paying for these poor people to sit there.
It's minimum wage level, Harry. It's
ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And then they wonder why the turnover of staff massive.
Yeah, but that's true.
Before
I'm going to get reviews. So get those depressing, Harry, and get that Neil Fissler off your show. It's depressing us.
They've still got 1,500 tins out the back in the club shop. Yeah, but they've all got dents in, but you can have one.
Chaps, it's been great talking to you. I think we've probably covered today's 2-1 win. Let's not forget that. Leaving us still 15th.
Roll on QPR, yay!
Roll on midweek. I can't go to that one in midweek, listeners, so it's going to be another post-match conversation afterwards. So big thank you, Neil. Thanks for taking time out your evening. Come on the show, mate. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all, mate. Really enjoyed it.
And great to see Harry Warren. Great to see you, H.
Yeah, cheers, mate. It was lovely. Nice to meet you, Neil. And it was good to watch Chelsea in the background give away a 1-0 lead.
And thank you to you too, dear listeners. I hope we've left you with food for thought. Until the next edition of Achtung Millwall. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Achtung Millwall. If you enjoyed the show, please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a cheeky little review. Arrivederci Millwall. Till next time.
Who do you want to watch?